Hello! If you're new here, my name is Shelly and I love all things true crime and serial killers. I am addicted to learning about it, and if you are too, then stick around. So today we're going to be talking about a woman named AILEEN WUORNOS. I'm not 100% sure on how to pronounce her name, so you'll just have to bear with me while I probably pronounce it several different ways throughout this video. WUORNOS was born in Rochester, Michigan, February 29th of 1956, which she is a leap year baby, so that alone can mess someone up. I'm just kidding. My birthday's February 28th, so almost a leap year baby. So her mom actually married at the age 14, and her name was Diane WUORNOS, and she married Leo Dale Pittman, who was 16. And they got married. Her mother did not approve, but they got married anyways, and they ended up giving birth to AILEEN's older brother, Keith. They weren't together for very long, but they were married June 3rd of 1954, which my anniversary is June 1st. So far all of the dates are too close to my dates for comfort. In March of 1955, that's when they gave birth to Keith, and then shortly after that they decided to get a divorce. And whenever they finalized the divorce, Diane was 2 months away from giving birth to AILEEN, but AILEEN had a different dad than Keith did. AILEEN never got a chance to meet her dad because her father was in prison for rape and attempted murder of a 7-year-old girl. I mean, this is not a family-friendly story. You know what? I keep forgetting to do disclaimers at the beginning. Let's just put this as a disclaimer. If you see serial killer in the title and you are very sensitive to that subject or things in relation to that subject, you probably shouldn't watch this video. We are going to be talking about people dying. There's AILEEN as a sex worker, so we're going to be talking about that kind of thing. So yeah, if you don't like hearing about any of that stuff, then see you later. But her father, along with being in prison, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia as well, and he was actually in and out of prison a lot for allegations against him regarding children. And he actually ended up hanging himself in his prison cell in January of 1969. So in January of the year 1960, AILEEN is 4 years old at this time, and her mother Diane decides to drop AILEEN and Keith off at their grandparents' house, and she never comes back to pick them up. So she literally abandoned her kids with their grandparents. And so these grandparents had to raise them. The grandparents still had 2 children in the home, so they just raised them along with their children. And then just a few months later, they legally adopted them. I mean, the mom was never gonna come and pick them up, so she basically abandoned them. And then it turns out that the grandfather is a drunk, and he is very abusive towards AILEEN specifically. And not only was he physically abusive, he was also like sexually abusive. I mean, that's a physical thing as well, but you know what I'm saying. And during this time, AILEEN and her brother were, how should I say this? It's really weird, but her and her brother were very close one minute, and then the next minute they would like fist fight, get an actual fist fight. And it turns out that they were actually being real incesty, if you catch my drift. You know, they didn't know exactly what they were doing because like they were little kids. I was watching like this documentary, and the lady was saying that like it was kind of innocent because they didn't know what they were doing, and they didn't know that like what they were doing was necessarily wrong. To everyone else, it's very wrong and disgusting. Anyway, at the age 11, she figured out that if she did sexual favors for like the boys at school, for example, then she could exchange that into getting something in return. You know, whether it be some cigarettes, some booze, and maybe some food. Now, AILEEN wasn't really necessarily best friends with anyone at her school, but there was a place that the kids at her school would go to hang out, and they called it the Pit. And they would go there and do, you know, get into stuff that kids get into that they're not supposed to be doing. When she was at the pits, then she could do stuff with the other kids, and even though she really wasn't in their like friend groups, it was a place where she could feel more included. And the grandparents like had no idea that she was so sexually active right now, especially the grandma. But at age 14, AILEEN actually became pregnant, and she hid it from her grandparents until she was 6 months along. And then whenever they found out, she claimed that it was one of her grandfather's friends that he let come in and abuse her. Not only would her grandfather abuse her and do stuff, but he would also let his friends or other guys come in and do the same. And yeah, one of them ended up getting her pregnant, and then so they sent her off to a home for unwed mothers, and that is where she had the baby. It was a baby boy, but she didn't have anything to do with the baby. It was put up for adoption immediately, and that was that. She went back to her grandparents' house to live with them, but now everything was so much worse than before, and her brother actually ran away several different times together, but they would be found and brought back to the home. But this time, whenever she got back, she trying to get out even harder, I guess. And just a few months after she got back, her grandmother ended up dying of liver failure, and AILEEN dropped out of school, and her grandfather actually ended up kicking her and her brother out. You can just see that this is not a good life so far, you know? So her brother did have a couple of friends in the town that he kind of went and stayed with, and there's not a lot of information about him. I'm sure if I kept looking, I would find something, but I was more focused on AILEEN. And at age 16, she hitchhiked from Michigan all the way to Colorado. It's a long way to go. You know, she was kicked out, and she was trying to live in like a nearby wooded area, but we all know that doesn't really work out, especially if you have like no gear or supplies to help you. And in Michigan, it's not very warm in Michigan. So she just kind of started hitchhiking at a super young age to get away or to find a better place. You know, remember in school, she figured out that she was able to do sexual favors for things. So that's kind of what she started to do. She became a sex worker, basically. So at the age of 18, in May of 1974, she was arrested in Colorado for driving under the influence and for firing a gun from a moving vehicle, and also for disorderly conduct. And then later on, she failed to appear in court, so that's a big no-no too. But in 1976, she hitchhiked from Colorado all the way down to Florida. You know, so far she's been in like colder states. One source did say that she wanted to go down to Florida so that at night she could sleep on the beach instead of just like out in the cold. So this whole time, AILEEN has had terrible anger issues. She would go into bars and just pretty much immediately get involved in bar fights all the time, and she got arrested like over and over for assault. And she actually ended up meeting a guy named Lewis, who was a 69-year-old yacht club president. So he had money, and AILEEN married him. Some people said that she just married him to kind of like stay off the streets because of how she was living, and he had lots of money so he could take care of her. And I agree with the people that say that, because at one point he cut off her spending money, and she was not happy about that at all, and she beat him with his own cane. Of course, he got a restraining order against her, and she was also at a bar, and she was arrested for assault because she threw a cue ball at the bartender's head. So this was just a very angry, very violent woman. Yeah, so she ended up not being able to be married to him anymore because he got a restraining order because she beat him with a cane. Anyone would get a restraining order at that point. Her brother also died of throat cancer. I only saw this in one place, but or maybe two places. Some places said that she was able to collect $10,000 when her brother died from insurance, and she kind of blew that just immediately. She used the money to like pay off fines, which makes sense, and she also used the money to buy a car, which she wrecked pretty soon after she got it. She just went back to doing what she knew how to do. She worked the exit ramps off of highways in Florida, and you know, at this point she doesn't really see hope, I guess. She's divorced now, nothing's working out, she's been treated horrible, she's been abused. Being a sex worker wasn't fulfilling at all. Her brother died, which is probably the only person that she still cared about. So in the year 1978, she actually took a .22 caliber pistol and shot herself in the abdomen and went to the hospital for it. And you know, whenever you go to the hospital for stuff like that, they ask you like questions like, are you depressed, are you sad, and all of that type of thing. And they did, and she said that it wasn't the first time that she had tried to take her life. And even after telling them that, she did not get the help that she needed. They just released her. I don't want to like blame the hospital staff for anything. So, you know, after she recovered and got out of the hospital, she actually tried to rob a convenience store, and she stole $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes. That's a big win if you ask me. And she actually walked into the store wearing like just a bikini. So, you know, good for her. And obviously she was arrested. She ended up going to prison for 3 years. And while she was in there, she complained about all of the lesbian inmates, which is interesting. And you'll find out why it's interesting in a little bit. But when she was released, it was just a couple of days before she was arrested again for trying to forge checks at a bank. And she was always getting in trouble. She committed crimes like grand theft auto, obstruction of justice, possessions of firearm, robbery, and she also was in trouble for resisting arrest. So at this point, she doesn't really have anywhere to live. She doesn't have anywhere to go. She's just kind of going around and robbing places, kind of doing what she can to get money and food or whatever. And then in January of 1986, AILEEN goes to a gay bar and meets a woman named Tyra Moore. So she meets Tyra in Daytona Beach, and they had an instant connection. AILEEN thought that this woman was the love of her life. They actually moved in together. Their relationship went pretty fast. Tyra actually went by Ty, so I'm going to refer to her as Ty. So Ty worked as like a hotel maid person, like a housekeeper at a hotel, and so she wasn't making like a lot of money. The person that made most of their money was AILEEN, and she made that money by being a sex worker. They kind of just had like their own life going, you know. They mainly lived in and out of hotels, and they moved around the state of Florida a lot, so they were never really in one place for very long. AILEEN got arrested for assault in a bar on several occasions, and Ty would always be there defending her, and she would always be on her side. And you know, if she got arrested, Ty would always be there for her, and she would always come to her defense. It makes sense. A lot of people would do that for the person that they love. She was continuing to just like rob stores, assault people. She was forging checks. One day she decided to, you know, step it up a notch. And in 1989, she actually started murdering. She had 7 victims that we know of, and she killed all of them in a span of 12 months. There are more details, but I'm just kind of focusing on like AILEEN and what she was doing rather than the victim. I mean, the victims' names are out there, but for right now, I'm just kind of focusing on AILEEN and what she did. So I hope that's okay with you. So her first found victim was a 51-year-old man who owned his own electronic repair store in Clearwater, Florida. On December 13th was when his body was found, but he was murdered a little while before that. He was found in the woods several miles outside of Clearwater. They also found his car in like a separate location, and she had taken belongings. She had definitely like robbed him, and anything else that was in the car she kind of like dumped out in another area, poured sand all over it to kind of cover up that she had touched it, I guess. And she had shot him several times. The shots that actually ended his life were 2 bullets in his lung. I don't know if you're wanting to know that, but there you go. It was interesting. I saw Ty did an interview, and she said that AILEEN came home and she said that she had killed someone, and she didn't believe her. And her second victim was found June 1st of 1990. He was a 47-year-old man, and he was found along Route 19 in Citrus County, Florida, and he was shot, I believe, 6 times. Another victim was a 40-year-old man who was a part-time rodeo worker, and he was shot about 9 times. He was found in Pasco County, Florida, and he was wrapped in an electrical blanket, and he had been decomposing for a while. Witnesses actually said that they saw her in his car, or like disposing of his car. So police started looking at her as a suspect, and she also found a gun in his glove box in his car, and she pawned it because that's what she would do. She would, you know, work the highways, and then whenever they picked her up, they would go off, sit in their parked car, get drunk, and then she would kill them and take all of their stuff, and if it was worth anything, she would pawn it. So that was basically her process. But whenever she pawned this gun, it was still in his name. So police were able to figure out that the gun was pawned and find the gun that was registered in his name. And they actually found her fingerprints on a bunch of stuff that was pawned from several different victims, but we'll get to that later. Victim number 4 was a 65-year-old merchant seaman who had an outreach ministry. Witnesses said that they saw her with his car, and they actually said that they saw Ty with her abandoning the car. And police found a palm print that was AILEEN's, and they were able to link her to this murder as well. And they didn't find the body. The handprint on the interior handle of the car helped them to figure out why this guy was missing. So they never found the body, but because she was also tied to the other murders, eventually they just kind of knew that she shot him. Victim number 5 was a 50-year-old sausage salesman, and he was reported missing in July, and his body wasn't found until later in August in the woods along Route 19. Again, he had been shot twice. Victim number 6 was a retired U.S. Air Force major. He was a former child abuse investigator. He was also the chief of police at one point, and his body was found in September. He was shot 6 times in his head and abdomen. And number 7 was a 62-year-old trucker, and they found his body near Remote Road in Dixie County, and he was shot 4 times. AILEEN being seen in these people's cars was an ongoing thing, and this last one, she was in his car with Ty. I don't know where Ty thought all of these cars were coming from, because supposedly Ty had no idea that she was killing people, because remember that one time, the first time she killed someone, she told Ty, I killed someone, and Ty was like, no you didn't. So her and Ty were in this man's car, and they actually got into a wreck right in front of this family's house, and the people in the house, they came out and they were like, oh my god, what happened? As anyone would. So they come out of the house trying to see if everyone's okay, what happened, and they see AILEEN and Ty in their wrecked car, and they're like, oh my god, God, are you guys okay? Do you need help? AILEEN actually ripped the license plate off the car with her hands and just like threw it into the woods, trying to cover up the fact that it was a dead dude's car. So AILEEN and Ty were like, oh no, we're fine, you know, no one's hurt, nothing happened, just go back inside, we are good, scatter, leave us alone. And they actually took off on foot. Like, they both were just like, you go that way, I'll go this way, let's just get out of here, you know? So the family that was in the house was like, that was really weird, wasn't it? Do you think that was weird? I think that was weird. So they called the police. And so the police got there, and of course the police pretty much figured out what had happened. So the police were able to figure out what these women's names were. They were able to figure out who they were. So then the police started like a media campaign, and they were like, hey, if you see these women, let us know because we're looking for them. And on January 9th of 1991, they actually found where AILEEN was, and she was at a biker bar in Florida, and it was called The Last Resort, which is a great name. And so the police were like, we gotta go and arrest her right now. Like, what do we have on her? Because knowing her, she could just get on one of these bikers' bikes with them and just leave and go be halfway across the country before we know it. They tracked down Ty, who has made it all the way up to Pennsylvania at this point. Yeah, no, Ty was like, I'm out of here. She's gone. I'm gonna have to wipe it off. I don't have time to wipe it off, but you know what? It's gonna happen. So they bring Ty down from Pennsylvania. They make sure that AILEEN doesn't know that Ty is back in Florida. So the police set Ty up in a hotel room, and they're like, listen, we've set up this phone to record conversations. You just need to try and get a confession out of her so that we can arrest her. They made a deal with Ty, and they said that they would give her immunity, like she wouldn't get in trouble at all, even though, you know, Ty still to this day says that she had nothing to do with any of the murders or anything. I mean, I don't know. She could have known what AILEEN was doing. She could have helped AILEEN cover it up. Ty did agree to help the police get a confession from her. It took a little bit, but eventually AILEEN called Ty, and I did listen to part of the phone call, and I would put that in this video, but I don't know if it's like, if it has like a copyright on it or not. But it was basically Ty was telling her that she was gonna go down for all of these murders, and she was like, I had no idea what was going on. I'm about to get in huge trouble. They're coming after my family. She was basically saying that she was gonna go to prison. Her family could have gone to prison too if AILEEN doesn't come forward, because she was gonna get blamed for all of the murders and stuff. So then AILEEN, she was still in love with Ty. You know, Ty had been the only person that hadn't just completely abandoned her. You know, I mean, everyone in her life had abused and abandoned her, you know, and Ty hadn't done that. So of course she's gonna do whatever she can for her. And I mean, she was in love. On January 16th, AILEEN confessed to Ty that she had killed the men, and she told her that it was self-defense and she killed them because they all had attacked her or tried to rape her. Even a confession of self-defense, like, that's still a confession to killing the men. So the police were able to use that and bring her in. She went on numerous trials. Like, she had a trial for each victim from January to November of the year 1992, and she received 6 death sentences. Ty actually testified against her in court. AILEEN just felt as a huge betrayal. For the longest time, AILEEN, all she would say was that it was self-defense and the men tried to hurt her, or they tried to kill her, or, you know, they were trying to rape her. She stuck to that story. But then it was like, whenever she saw Ty testify against her, I mean, like, the love of her life is up there testifying against her, saying that she murdered all of these men, and that's kind of when she decided to tell the truth, or part of it. She switched her story to saying that she was robbing the men and she killed them because she didn't want witnesses to her robbing them. She read the Bible and basically flipped, and she was saying that she was guilty and there's no use in keeping her alive, because she said that she would just be doing it again, so she should have the death sentence because there's no use in keeping her alive. Now, her attorneys were trying to say that she was not mentally competent. Like, they were trying to say that she was not mentally stable and that she didn't know what she was saying because she was asking to die. And the attorneys would be like, why would she do that unless she had some mental issues, you know? There was a court-appointed panel of psychiatrists, and they agreed that she did know what she was talking about, and that was just her decision. Whenever I watched an interview with Ty, she said that she loved AILEEN, but she was happy to give the police like all that they needed, and she said that she told them all of the truth. She told them everything she knew, and she said that she had absolutely nothing to hide. And she also said that she regretted not going to the police after AILEEN came home and told her that she had murdered the first man. And she said that she felt bad because if she had gone to the police, then maybe the other 6 would have been alive still. AILEEN, because she had the death sentence, she had 6 death sentences, she was offered her last meal, but she denied it. She did not want to have a last meal, and she just wanted a cup of coffee. And there was actually a woman who, her name is not important because she is irrelevant. Well, she's not irrelevant, but I don't like her. Whenever AILEEN was going through court, her story, her case, and all of the murders that she did, and the fact that like she was a lesbian at this point in time, all of this was just the top news story. Like, everyone was so invested in this, and everyone wanted to see what was happening with her. And you know, I mean, everyone was just like, there's a woman who's a sex worker who's killing men, but she's also a lesbian. Like, it's a very interesting story, you know. There was a lady who took advantage of that at one point. She was very involved in a church in the area, and she said that she was sent to take care of AILEEN because she believed that AILEEN just needed a second chance and all of this stuff. So she legally adopted AILEEN so that she could visit her in prison, because whenever AILEEN was going through all of her trials and stuff, only family members could visit her. So she legally adopted her. She's well over 18. Whenever AILEEN was going through her trials and when she was in prison, she had a blue ballpoint pen, and she would do like sketches and drawings with it, and was using her last days to get right with God. Like, in her words, she was admitting to her crimes, and she was just trying to get right. She was reading the Bible, and she would do these ballpoint pen drawings, and she would give them to this lady that legally adopted her. Eventually, they discovered that this lady had plans to open a museum and to just sell all of these artworks because her story was so popular and big. So she was basically just using her, and she was gonna eventually make money off of her after she was dead. I mean, that's not really super relevant to this whole video, but I thought that it was very interesting. Why would you do that? That was just one more betrayal for her to go through. Like, the love of her life was testifying against her in court, and it was like that was the last straw, but then there was even more straws after the last straw. You know what I mean? I feel like that doesn't really make sense, but I feel like you get it. So back to her last meal. She just wanted some coffee. Her case and everything was already pretty famous, but her last words baffled everybody. Like, no one had any idea what she was talking about. This is what she said, and this is a direct quote. "I would like to just say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus June 6th. Like the movie, the mothership and all, I'll be back." So no one really knew what she meant, and her saying this baffled like everybody. She said that right before she had her lethal injection. I'm not really sure what she meant by that either. Do you see how patchy that is? What is happening? I am just going to cover it in something shiny and then call it good, because it is not working out for me today. So she was executed October 9th of 2002. So yeah, that is AILEEN's story. Do you think that her killing those men was just self-defense? Or do you think that she was just killing them because she had been so mistreated by men throughout her life? Or by her grandfather mostly? Because, you know, she fought so hard telling them that it was all self-defense, and that was the only thing that she would say, was that it was self-defense for so long. And then it was like seeing Ty up there testifying against her. I really feel like it was partly self-defense, like maybe she was just looking for any kind of excuse to kill them. Remember, whenever she went to the hospital for shooting herself in the abdomen, she had told them that she had tried to commit suicide before, and so maybe just seeing Ty up there, she really wanted a lesser sentence so that she could go out and be with Ty and keep doing whatever she was doing. Seeing that like the last person that she cared about and the one person that she still cared about was up there testifying against her, and I feel like seeing that made her give up. And that's whenever she was like, you know what, you should give me the death penalty because I'm just gonna keep doing it. She literally said that. She said, I killed those men and I robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I'm sick of hearing that she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm completely sane. I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again. So after hearing that, what do you think? This woman just like could not control her temper, and whenever she was on trial, that did not help her at all. You know, so many people had witnessed her losing herself in public and getting mad at people. And Ty, in her interview, she talked about how they would be in public at a store and AILEEN would just like lose her mind on people. Like if one person was looking at her, she would go crazy and be like, what do you think you're looking at? And Ty said that it was really embarrassing to be out in public with her because she would just unleash on people. She had a lot of anger, and I'm not saying that it's an excuse at all, because at the end of the day, everyone is responsible for their actions no matter what you've been through. She was just really messed up. She was never like treated right. She had always been treated like an object, and so I feel like she didn't know any better, maybe. I don't know. I'm not trying to make excuses for her. It really sounds like I am, but I'm not trying to. It's a really sad story because she really didn't have anyone throughout her life, and you can just see what that does to someone. And also, what do you guys feel about her getting the death sentence? Do you think that she deserved the death sentence, or do you think that she should have just been in prison for the rest of her life? Because I'm sure that she would still be alive if she had the death sentence, or if she didn't have the death sentence. And you know, how do you feel about her? What do you think? What is your opinion? You've heard my non-professional opinion. I just find it so interesting how whatever happens to you in your childhood, like how much it affects what you do when you're an adult, and like how you deal with that trauma and how it affects you and how it can lead to you doing crazy stuff, you know? Okay guys, that is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you have a good rest of the day, because I am having such a rough time right now, honestly. Y'all have witnessed me struggling. I had to take off my makeup, did a new one, and that was super patchy. You know, my eyelashes are not wanting to stick. I had a huge, the biggest glob of mascara I've ever seen. Got stuck on me, but you know what? I'm still here and I'm still going. I'm not gonna start over, because you know what, that is just how it goes sometimes, and I need you guys to know, never give up. Yeah, don't forget to let me know what you think about AILEEN, and don't forget to like this video before you leave, because I like it when you like it. Also hit the subscribe button down below, become a part of my family, and don't forget to follow me on all of my social media. It's just Shellie G MUA on everything except for Snapchat, but I also don't really use my Snapchat anymore. But you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at ShellieGMUA. It's over here. And now my camera battery is about to die, but you know, jokes on bad luck because I'm already done with the video, so it doesn't matter. I'll see you all next week. God bless. Love you. Bye.